Walmart.
From Walmart.
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 Walmart's.
Walmart.
Walmart.
Let's get to Walmart now. Shares ripping to another all-time high today.
So for Walmart, the wealthy consumer is where they've been gaining the majority of shares.
In recent quarters, in particular, a lot of analysts have been asking what's going on with Walmart. Why is it having so much success?
Walmart's yearly sales outlook was less than Wall Street expected, and that hurt the retail giant stock price, leading to a wider sell-off.
Walmart, the retail giant we all know, just dropped a bombshell. The US economy might be on the brink of collapse. It's not every day a company this massive waves a red flag about consumer behavior and global chaos.
If Walmart says, quote, "we are in an uncertain time," that is a potential red flag. And then you zoom out, you couple this with the retail sales numbers that we got for January. Biggest drop we've seen in 2 years. And then the data that we're getting on how consumers feel about inflation, they think inflation is going to be above 4% within a year.
What's going on? Are we staring down a crisis, or is this just noise? With Amazon echoing the same fears and data piling up, it's hard not to wonder, is the economy we thought was unbreakable finally cracking? Stick around because this story's got layers you won't see coming, and it starts with what Walmart's actually saying. Walmart didn't just casually mention a hiccup, they unleashed a revelation that's got everyone's attention. In early 2025, their chief financial officer stepped into the spotlight and laid it out. They're seeing uncertainties tied to consumer behavior, global economic shifts, and geopolitical turbulence. When a juggernaut like Walmart drops a word like uncertainties, it's not them playing coy. It's a signal that the ground's shifting beneath them. This isn't some corner store griping about a slow month. Walmart's been the unshakable titan, the place where people turned when times got tough, especially over the last few years, as inflation pushed shoppers toward their low prices. So what's different now? Here's the core of it. Walmart's long been a haven for a wide swath of folks, low-income families absolutely, but even people pulling in over $100,000 a year started rolling up. They were the ultimate proof that consumer spending could hold strong no matter the storm, but now even they're admitting the tide's turning. Their CFO didn't dance around it, sales forecasts are wobbly and they're gearing up for a slowdown. This isn't about losing shoppers to upscale competitors, it's about those shoppers tightening their belts. You can almost see it, a bustling Walmart lot, but the carts aren't stacked high anymore, just the essentials, nothing more. That's the shift they're flagging. The evidence isn't just in their words. Retail sales data from January 2025 backs them up. Numbers came in weak, barely limping past expectations. Add in Walmart's massive global footprint, and they're catching heat from trade tensions and economic tremors abroad. If the king of affordable goods is sounding alarms, what does that mean for everyone else? Are consumers finally running on empty? The stats lean toward yes, and Walmart's not shy about saying it out loud, but here's where it gets intriguing. Walmart's not the only one picking up on this. Other clues are stacking up, pointing to a bigger, messier picture. Want to know what's really driving this shift? Let's dig into the consumer behavior that's got them spooked. So Walmart's ringing the alarm, but what's fueling this fire? It all hinges on the consumer, you, me, and the millions trying to navigate this mess. For years, we've been sold the idea that the US economy's a rock, shrugging off global chaos like it's nothing. Late 2024 even felt like a win. Spending surged, optimism spiked, and it seemed like we'd outrun the worst. But by February 2025, that glow's faded fast. What went wrong? Let's step back. Last year, consumers went hard. Holiday hauls, pre-tariff stockpiling, the works. It looked like a golden moment, but it was smoke and mirrors. Economists have a term for it, front-loading. People pulled their spending forward, buying big then because they feared prices would soar later with tariffs on the horizon. Problem is, bank accounts don't just bounce back. Incomes stayed flat. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows hourly wages up a modest 4% year over year, but hours worked, they're slipping. The average work week dropped to 34.1 hours from 34.4 a year ago. Higher pay per hour doesn't mean much if you're clocking less time overall. Consider Sarah, a nurse and classic Walmart regular. She earns a solid living, but her shifts got trimmed this year. She's still hitting the aisles, but the extras, those little impulse grabs, are gone. It's just bread, milk, and maybe a cheap pack of socks. Scale that up across millions, and you've got a consumer base that's not broke, but definitely stretched. Credit card debt's another red flag. It climbed to $1.14 trillion in Q4 2024, per the Federal Reserve, with delinquencies ticking up. People are leaning on credit because cash isn't enough anymore. Then there's the mental shift. After that 2024 spending spree, reality crashed in. Prices didn't ease. Eggs are still pricey, gas isn't cheap, and rent's a beast. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index slid from 74 in December to 64.7 by mid-February 2025. Why? Fear's creeping in about jobs, bills, the unknown. That's not the vibe of a robust economy, it's the hum of one losing steam. Walmart's seeing the fallout, fewer trips, lighter loads. But here's a twist worth sticking around for. What people are actually buying tells a story all its own. Let's unpack that next. Now, things get really telling. Walmart's not just noticing less spending, they're clocking what's flying off the shelves, and it's a glaring hint of trouble. Their CFO let slip something analysts can't stop chewing on. They're doubling down on house brands, you know the ones, great value. Their in-house line, cheaper than the big labels. Why is that a headline? Because it shows even their die-hard deal seekers are pinching pennies harder than ever. Here's the scoop. A few years ago, Walmart flexed about pulling in wealthier shoppers, folks making six figures, strolling in for bargains. It was a brag, even the well-off pick us. But now those same customers aren't reaching for Tide or Cheerios. They're snagging Walmart's off-brand versions. Economist Steve Van Meter put it sharp on a recent podcast. They're not even walking the aisles. They're ordering pickup online. No one wants to be caught dead bargain hunting. It's a mix of pride and survival. House brands aren't a fresh play. Walmart's leaned on them for ages. In 2023, private label sales hit 25% of their total per their own reports, and now they're pushing that share higher. Why the rush? Name brand prices like a $5 box of cereal aren't moving when wallets are squeezed. Inflation's eased a touch, down to 2.9% in January 2025 per the CPI, but it's still outpacing wage gains for most. Shoppers can't swing the premium stuff, so they settle for the $2 store brand alternative. This isn't a cute tale of thrift, it's a marker of strain. When even Walmart's crowd, the budget champs, downgrades further, it's a loud cry of distress, and guess what? This vibe's not exclusive to them. Other retail heavyweights are picking up the same beat, and it's rattling the cage. Let's widen the lens and see who else is feeling the heat. Walmart's got company in this storm. Amazon's been muttering similar concerns. Late 2024 saw them caution about softening demand, and their Q4 earnings call was far from upbeat. Their CFO flagged cautious consumer spending and macro headwinds, fancy terms for people aren't buying like they used to and we're sweating it. Amazon, the online behemoth, is catching the same chill. Hold up, didn't Amazon dominate during the pandemic? Absolutely, but that was a different era. Now, with inflation gnawing at budgets and wages stagnating, even prime diehards are hesitating before clicking Add to Cart. The numbers don't lie. E-commerce sales growth slowed to 7.2% in Q4 2024, down from double-digit jumps pre-2023 per the Census Bureau. It's not a collapse, but for a giant built on relentless expansion, it's a warning light. Zoom out further and the retail scene's bleak. January 2025 retail sales barely budged, up 0.2% month over month, missing the 0.5% analysts hoped for per the Commerce Department. Strip out cars and gas and it's dead flat. In retail land, flat's the new flop. Target and Best Buy are slashing forecasts too, griping about inventory gluts and promotional fatigue. In plain English, they're stuck with unsold stock and even big discounts aren't moving it like before. Check this stat. The personal savings rate sank to 3.4% in December 2024, the lowest since 2005 per the BEA. People are scraping by, dipping into reserves just to manage. It shows in their habits, less extravagance, more essentials. Even dollar stores aren't immune. Dollar General's CEO recently confessed their core crowd's pulling back. If the ultimate bargain hunters are holding off, who's keeping the lights on? This all screams one truth. The consumer engine that's driven the US for decades is coughing, but there's more brewing beneath the surface, and it's tied to some numbers everyone's watching. Let's dive into that next. If you want a peek at the economy's future, PMIs are your go-to purchasing managers' indexes, the pulse of business activity. They track orders, hiring, the whole deal, and when they shift, people pay attention. In February 2025, S&P Global's flash PMI for the US services sector, the economy's backbone, crashed below 50, hitting 49.7. Below 50 means shrinkage, and services hadn't seen that since the pandemic's darkest days. Let's unpack it. December 2024 had services humming at 58, strong growth. January slipped to 52.9, still decent, but February's dropped to 49.7. That's a gut punch. Manufacturing's been teetering near 50 for months, but services were the golden child, the sector meant to carry us. Not anymore. What's behind the fall? S&P's chief economist didn't hold back. Optimism about the year ahead has slumped from a near 3-year high at the turn of the year to one of the gloomiest since the pandemic. Businesses are rattled, tariffs, rate hikes, global unrest. New orders dried up and hiring plans got axed. Services employ about 80% of US workers per the BLS. If that engine stalls, jobs follow, and that's a domino effect no one wants. Inflation's not helping. Core PCE, the Fed's go-to measure, sat at 3.2% in January 2025. Prices aren't spiking, but they're sticky, keeping costs high while demand fades. Businesses are in a bind. They can't raise prices without losing customers, but margins are shrinking. Look at restaurants. The National Restaurant Association's index showed traffic down 2.5% year-over-year in January. Diners are skipping extras, splitting plates. Airlines are cutting fares too, but seats stay empty. This PMI dive is a blaring sign the economy's losing momentum. But there's another layer. How people feel about all this. Let's see what's happening there. Consumer confidence isn't just some stat, it's the economy's lifeblood. When folks feel secure, they spend. When they're jittery, they clamp down. Right now, they're locking it tight. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index plummeted from 74 in December 2024 to 64.7 by mid-February 2025, a 10-point drop in 2 months. The Conference Board's index echoed it, sliding from 110 to 102. What's spooking them? Jobs and money mostly. Geopolitics and tariffs get tossed around, but it boils down to one question. Will I still have a gig next month? The Michigan survey showed a spike in financial worry, people fretting about covering basics. Big purchases like cars or washers, buying conditions hit multi-year lows. No one's splurging when the future's foggy. Here's a telltale sign. The share of people saying jobs are hard to get rose to 15.3%, the highest since 2021. It's not chaos yet, but it's heading south. PMI employment gauges are slipping too. Companies are pausing hires or cutting back. Tech layoffs have been loud, but now retail, hospitality, even healthcare are trimming. Meet Mike, a software engineer. Laid off in January, he thought he'd snag something fast. Tech's always buzzing, right? 2 months later, he's still jobless, eating into savings. That story's multiplying, and it's tanking confidence. When your buddy's out of work, you start eyeing your own gig warily. This fear feeds itself. Nervous shoppers cut back, businesses lose revenue, then jobs get slashed, spurring more fear. It's a brutal loop. But didn't we think jobs would pull us through? Let's check that next. The labor market's been the economy's poster child for resilience. Unemployment's near 4%, and everyone's cheered, "We're golden." But scratch the surface and it's murkier. The headline rate hides underemployment, part-time traps, and folks giving up entirely. January 2025's U6 rate, counting discouraged workers and reluctant part-timers, hit 7.8%, up from 7.1% a year prior. That's a chunk of people stuck on the sidelines. Wages look okay. Average hourly earnings rose 4.1% year-over-year in January per the BLS. But inflation's gobbling that up. Real wage growth is near zero. Plus, hours worked are down to 34.1 per week. More pay per hour doesn't help if your paycheck's lighter overall. Layoffs are spreading too. Tech's been shedding jobs since 2023, but now retail's joining in. Macy's and Wayfair cut staff in early 2025, and whispers say Walmart's quietly doing the same. Challenger, Gray & Christmas logged a 20% jump in layoff announcements in Q4 2024 over Q3. That's no fluke. Hiring's cooling too. Job openings dropped to 8.9 million in December 2024, down from 10.5 million a year earlier per JOLTS. It's above pre-pandemic norms, but the trend's downward. Fewer gigs mean less leverage for workers, which drags on wages and morale. The quits rate, how often people ditch jobs for better ones, fell to 2.1% in December, the lowest since 2020. No one's jumping, they're holding tight. The strong jobs line from the Fed and talking heads doesn't hold up under scrutiny. It's not crashing, but it's wobbling, and that's a problem for a consumer-led economy. Speaking of which, this isn't just our mess, the globe's tangled in it too. Let's look at that. Once upon a time, people claimed the US was a fortress while the world crumbled. China's housing bust, Europe's energy woes, Japan's stagnation. But that's a fairy tale. We're hooked into global markets, and their pain's ours too. Trade's a big piece. $3.2 trillion in imports hit the US in 2024, per the Census Bureau. China's GDP growth sagged to 4.5% in Q4 2024, their weakest in decades, tanking demand for US exports. The ISM Manufacturing Index has lingered below 50 for 3 months straight. Europe's no better, the Eurozone's flirting with recession, with Germany's output down 2.4% in Q4. Fewer orders there hit American factories hard. Tariffs on steel and tech aren't helping, jacking up costs. Emerging markets are faltering too. Brazil's wrestling 10% inflation, and India's growth dipped to 5.8% in Q4. These were the next big spenders, but they're stumbling. It's a global slowdown in lockstep, and the US isn't dodging it. Walmart's international arm, spanning 24 countries, is dragging earnings, and Amazon's global reach is taking hits too. The America's immune myth's busted, and the stats prove it. So where's this all heading? Let's tie it up.